Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, dear participants, welcome to session 7. I hope people will come as we started. We have 4 valuable papers to be presented in this session. But we have made this minor change in the order. We start with Professor Asutay and Yılmaz paper. The first presentation is about Islamic banking and human development. Are developmentalist consultations still there? So the floor is yours. I think Isa will present the paper.
By the way, I remind you this time, we have 15 minutes for each presentation, so we can match the time.
Assalamu alaikum. In this presentation, I'll talk about the relationship. Yeah. Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum. Okay. In this presentation, I'll talk about the relationship between Islamic banking, development and human development through an empirical analysis by examining the developmentalist objectives of Islamic banking as envisaged during 1960s by founding fathers of Islamic economics. So here is the plan of presentation. We will first start with the brief introduction. Then research aims and objectives and research questions follows this. Then in reviewing the literature, we will focus on and touch upon the finance growth nexus. Then we will move to our empirical model and the estimation. Then we will discuss the findings, empirical findings, and we will end up with the conclusion. As we all know, the world is suffering from so many kinds of problems, socioeconomic problems, including the poverty, the inequality in wealth generation, the great economic gap across countries, low economic performance, inefficiency, and etc. And these, as you know, that these are all related to the development concepts. As a response to these developmentalist needs of societies, policymakers mostly suggest the growth-oriented economic policies. So these policies are mainly capital incentive policies. We will see this capital intensiveness in Adam Smith's words, and he says that the engine of growth is implicit in the division of labor, in the accumulation of capital, in the technological progress. So this materialist approach is essentialized by capital accumulation, the canonization of GDP per capita. And it has penetrated the every policy sphere of Western economic thought in dealing with the developmentalist issues. So we can say that the conventional understanding of economic growth creates the imbalances with so many aspects. And we should reconsider the validity of growth theories and then concentrate on the emerging need of economic development or the developmentalism. When we move to the Islamic part, we see that the Islamic developmentalism approaches to the concept of development from 3 aspects. And it has moral, spiritual, and material aspects in the Islamic side. And while these 3 aspects simultaneously are established, then we expect that justice, welfare, equity, and peace will prevail all amongst the world. And despite the fact that the Islamic development model is expected to define and rebuild every institution, behavioral norms and values in the society, this theoretical framework and the concept mainly finds its applicability in the institutional bodies and particularly in the financial sector. So, Islamic banks remain presently as the only type of advanced instruments, even as instruments which are expected to play an important role over contents, goals, substance and achievements of the development process in the Muslim countries. Therefore, the performances of Islamic banks would make high impact on both individual well-being and social welfare. And this study, therefore, contributes to the understanding that the performances of Islamic banking, or more generally Islamic finance, shouldn't be left to the financial performance only, and due to its model constructs, they should be subject to the social evaluation. It should generate some social impacts in the economic system. So our aim with this research is to go beyond the growth-based economic theories, and by exploring and examining the link between Islamic banking development and the economic development through observing performances of some selected Islamic banks. So the any result coming out of the econometric analysis is expected to give some implications about these Islamic banks' contributions to the realization of the specified development model. These are our objectives. I should skip this because of the time limit. And the research questions. So in reviewing the literature, there is the finance growth nexus in the literature that is mostly dealt with, and mostly economic factors are dealt or are focused on while while examining the link between finance and the financial development and its contributions to the economic growth. There are also some non-economic factors. These factors include the political economic factors, societal factors, and the legal factors. So when we look at the literature in the economic factors side, we always see start with the Schumpeter and the Robinson debate. And this debate is very well known amongst the academics, and especially after the World War II, there are two main debates: the impact of financial repressionist view and the financial liberalization view on the financial development. Which one better performs on the financial development and than economic growth? And then there is also the comparison between the market-based systems and the role of market-based systems and the bank-based financial systems over the financial development. And also the role of stock markets is also important in the sense of contributing to financial development. And the political economic factors, under the subject of non-economic factors, we see such issues of the transformation of the role of policymakers and the structure of institutions, the impact of political institutions, the type of political regimes, property rights, and the isolated institutions. How do they impact on financial development and shape it? And the societal and legal factors, here we see the issues of the effect of common law and the civil law, the efficient working financial regulations, and the corporate governance, trust, societal norms. These are all impacting on financial development of an economy, particular economy. And we can now move to our econometric estimation and the data and the model. We examine the relationship between Islamic banking development and human development in a panel of 20 Muslim-oriented countries over the period of 1996 and 2014. And the data are averaged over 3-year intervals. Then we also conducted an alternative analysis for the robustness test, and we examined the relationship by using a different proxy for Islamic banking development, and that only covers, due to its data availability, the period between 2000 and 2013 and 12 cross-section of countries. So in both empirical studies, the data availability constrains the sample size, as Islamic banking data is quite limited and is yet to burgeon in various databases. Here is our baseline regression. The dependent variable is the Human Development Index, and the independent variable is Islamic banking development, and which is proxied by total assets, Islamic banking total assets. And for the robustness test, we chose the total financing values of Islamic banking. And BD is the overall banking development proxied by the conventional banking total asset values, and X is the set of control variables. Here is the list of the variables and the data sources as well. Apart from the dependent and independent variables, we have the GDP, GDP per capita, VGI, that is the worldwide governance indicators, oil rents, oil production, gross capital formation, trade, government effectiveness, Gini coefficient, political stability, and government expenditure. So our methodology is basically the quantitative methodology, and we use the unbalanced panel data analysis. We benefit the historical statistical data. Then we used a range of econometric techniques which incorporates the pooled and fixed effect estimators that enables us to control country-specific effects, and the system GMM estimator to address the endogeneity bias. Before moving to the results, I should say that we had some econometric challenges in applying this regression. One of them is the fact that the Islamic financial operations can be traced back to very recent times, and the data availability is a well-known issue to be addressed. Hence, a long-time project, that is the development, can hardly be evaluated by analyzing short time period with the limited data. And secondly, despite it's very distinctive, the Human Development Index does not constitute an ideal indicator for our study, as it poses many problems, but it's still the best indicator, we believe, for development studies. Thirdly, Islamic finance takes a very small portion inside the whole financial system, which means that reaching statistically significant impacts is hard to achieve. And despite all these challenges, it is still important to empirically assess the performances of Islamic banks, for the results gives us some impact of Islamic finance growth on developmentalist objectives. So here are the results. And as you see, we gradually apply the control variables, and the first 4 columns reflects the pooling effect results, and the second 4 columns reflects the fixed effect results. And if we concentrate on the 8th column result, we see that the GDP per capita has a positive impact, and also the trade openness has a positive impact. And if you look at the Islamic banking total assets, we see that it has small but positive and significant impact. And this is the system GMM estimation results, and which we believe that it is more proper to use system GMM approach in such panel data studies. Here we had some interesting results. First, the GDP per capita has a negative impact on human development, which is very, very unorthodox in the literature. We can explain this later, but first I should concentrate on the results of Islamic banking total assets. It has similar coefficient with the previous results, and positive but small impact. And also trade has negative impact and significant impact. When we explain the results of GDP per capita, in the literature, it's very well known that it should have positive impact on human development. But why here we have a negative impact, GDP per capita, on human development? As a response to this, I can say that these countries that we selected during our analysis, the GDP per capita is calculated by, the GDP, and it's divided by population, and we can get the GDP per capita. It's a mathematical calculation, but what is experienced in the real life is an issue, such that the allocation income distribution is an important issue here. So if these countries' income distribution are not good, it means that the increase in GDP does not go or are not distributed to the lay people or the lower class people. So it does not contribute to human development in a general sense. It only contributes to the richest people in the economy or in the country. So that's why we believe that it gave us a negative impact. And also the trade. Trade has negative impact. This is due to the fact that these economies, the selected countries' economies are mostly closed economies. They are not perfectly integrated into the global economic system. So when these multinational corporations or big powers, big economic powers enter into the country, they exploit all the resources, and at the end of this process, the economy cannot prosper or cannot grow in a good way. This is the second explanation for the trade effect, negative effect. And for the robustness results, we applied another regression, but here we choose different variables. For example, the Gini coefficient, as most of us know, that it gives us some implications on the distributional issues. And political stability, here, the government expenditure, oil rent, Islamic banking, total financing, as I mentioned before, we used it as a second indicator for Islamic banking development. First, if you look at the Islamic banking total asset results, it gives a very similar coefficient with the previous ones, positive but small effect. And also here, it's interesting that political stability has negative and significant impact on these countries, which means that which means it's related to the power allocation. To get the if these countries are politically stable, this means that there is no reallocation of resources. There is no power reallocation. So as long as the stability is established, then these countries cannot prosper or cannot financially develop. To financially develop, we need a reform or politically reform or the change of political regime or more democratization, such issues. So for these countries, we have the negative impact. And as I mentioned, the Islamic banking has a small but positive impact here. Then to conclude that I should stress on the effect of the heavy financialization pattern here. As we know that the conventional banking or the conventional financial system is moving towards the very heavy financialization pattern, and economy and finance is diverging each other, and we are moving towards a convergence towards the financialization. The same trend is experiencing in the Islamic financial side. Islamic finance and Islamic economics is diverging, and most theoretical studies is concentrating on the empirical side and essentializing the finance. So the empirical results accordingly show us that Islamic banking has positive but very small impact on human development, as I mentioned, suggesting a poor contribution to developmentalist trajectories of countries, whereas the founding fathers of Islamic economics institutionalized Islamic banking to serve for both financial and social development in a harmonic way. As Islamic finance couldn't fulfill such an objective due to the gradual convergence towards mainstream finance, it must be concluded that as long as Islamic finance mimics the conventional financialization trend, empirical studies that examine Islamic banking development nexus wouldn't have any word other than stating the failure and evidencing this through different estimation models. So this is the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening.
Okay, if you have questions, I open the floor for question and answer session. Let's see, have nothing from here. Well, can we just pass the microphone?
I have just two technical comments about the estimation method. I wonder about the results of the GML model. You have 12 cross-section, right? and the coefficient of the laggard human development index is greater than 1. In dynamic models, this coefficient should be less than 1, unless the long-term coefficient should have higher, lower impact compared to the short-term. My explanation, if you look to the number of observations, you have 95 observations, while with the fixed effect you have 50% more observations. So you don't have the same sample. So I'm warned a little bit about the compare the results of the dynamic model GMM and the fixed effect.
Here, it is there is no 12 countries here. For the robustness analysis, I applied between the dates 2000 and 2013 and 12 cross-section of countries here for the robustness analysis. For the GMM application, our data range is 1996 and 2014, and we have 20 countries.
All right.
So that's why it's different here, the number of
Otherwise, you should compare the same. When you use different methods, you should verify that you have the same samples.
You mean the robustness?
Yes, yes, because when you use GMM, you introduce laggard variables. You should run again the model fixed effect with the same data. So you exclude the first year, or the, right?
But
in order to compare the results between the static and dynamic method.
Yes, normally if we want to compare the results with the system GMM and for the robustness analysis, we should apply the same data range and the same number of countries. But here, our challenge is that because we applied the Islamic banking total financing, we could only find the data for 2000 and 2013, and we had only 12 countries. As you know, that the Islamic banking data is quite limited. So that's what we could only apply. We could only get the data together. So that's why we applied the fixed effect estimators rather than system GMM, because system GMM requires more cross sections and less time sections.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you. Is it possible to separate out the amount of consumer financing and non-consumer financing in Islamic banks' balance sheets to make some explanation of this?
Yeah, if you go into the literature, I couldn't for the consumer financing and non-consumer financing, I couldn't find such a data actually.
So if you just look at, say, Tawarruf financing, which will be quite a lot of people consumer financing, okay? And Jara financing, which will be more SME kind of financing, that might explain your negative correlation with GDP, because you are actually picking up things which do not relate to the real economy.
Yeah.
So maybe as an add-on.
Yeah, I should add on. Okay, thank you.
We looked at the breakdown of the data and the Islamic finance financing. The value-added sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture, etc., rather than the type of loans or financing, but we looked at the sectors, how it can be. Because the sectors are terribly limited, the financing given to manufacturing, agriculture, etc., which are the value-added sectors. The nearly from bank to bank, between 60 to 90% of the financing was the major sectors like real estate and construction, financing and consumer durables. And therefore, in order to capture the development effect of the value-adding sectors, unfortunately, for the Islamic finance, there's nothing there. But of course, that explains the negative correlation, because the amount of financing it goes into the sectors which doesn't have value added. So that's the explanation for that indicators we have highlighted. So breakdown of the Islamic financing, it gives us an amazing understanding of which sectors that they have been heavily financing. Like yesterday when we looked at with the FM, the Turkish Islamic banking, in very recent years they shifted entirely to energy sectors. because government now essentializes the energy sector. Nearly 90% of the financing from the entire banking sector goes. But at the same time, it's a very risky area, and the value added is terribly low, and therefore most of the NPLs of the Islamic banks come from energy.
A quick question from me. For this, the magnitude of Islamic banking, would you consider using the proportion of Islamic banking instead of using the log of the total asset as a ratio?
Yeah, we could apply this, but it's a development-related study, so we couldn't adapt it to growth-oriented issues. For example, we could apply, for example, for the Islamic banking development, getting the ratios, Islamic banking total asset ratio to economic growth, for example. But these are mostly growth-related issues studied, so that's why we wanted to find another indicator for the Islamic banking development, such as total financing. It gives us the development, it reflects the development. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is, I mean, you can tell the same story, basically scaling it down. I mean, you have this, but in terms of what? You have other macro variables like GDP and all these things, you know, the percentage of what's happening.
Yes.
But this one is not as Professor Aslan said. I mean, try this and see
Yeah.
whether you get the same result or not.
I should also try that. Okay. If you are done with this presentation, let's move to the second presentation. I invite Professor Borhan Saiti here. He will present his paper, Islamic Bank Retail Financing Products and Services, a Critical Assessment. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Okay, assalamu alaikum and still good morning. So actually we already see many empirical papers. Mine is not really empirical, it's more on the fundamental research actually, try to assess all the retail product and services of Islamic banking in Malaysia actually. Okay, so mostly I cover almost all retail and product and services, including the concept, contract, and the product, as well as the pricing, as well as try to discuss the issues and the challenges of each product actually. Okay, so that's why I call the critical assessment. So I am the Buerhan Saiti from the International Islamic University of Malaysia, and I have the two co-researchers actually. So the first, because there is an argument just saying that is where Islamic finance belong to actually. So the first part of my research, I just try to explain where is Islamic banking and finances belong to actually. Okay, as you know, the Islam is consisted of the three basic elements, and which is Aqidah and the Sharia law. For example, Prof. Kabir Hassan just called Islamic Sharia actually. Okay, so meaning that it actually is Islam is three broad categories. One of them is Aqidah, another one will be Sharia law and Akhlaq actually. Now, I don't want to explain the three of them, the definition of the three of them, but from this chart, we can see that, okay, so the Islam itself is three broad categories. One of them is the Aqidah. This is the faith and belief by the believers. And the second one will be Sharia law, which is the practice and activities of the Muslims actually, as well as the Akhlaq. So Sharia law, furthermore, divided into two categories as well, is Ibadah. I think it's come to the Ibadah, there is no negotiation. Okay, we have to pray 5 times per day, or like we have to fast 30 days during the Ramadan, and so on and so forth. There is no room for negotiation. Then is muamalat. Okay, so this is like man-to-man activities. Okay, this is not directly involved with the God or Allah. It is like the relationship between man-to-man actually. So meaning that here is including, furthermore, the categories as well, like political activities and economic activities, as well as social activities actually. So the Islamic banking and the finance activities is belong to the economic activities. There are some certain elements like haram or riba is like clear cut is haram actually. Halal also clear, haram also is clear actually. But there are many gray areas actually, which is they need our intervention or like the critical assessment to achieve the broader objective of Islamic and the finance actually. Okay, so Islamic banking and the finance activities is part of the puzzle of the muamalat, okay, which is the, again I mentioned, on the muamalat, therefore subject to the Sharia law on the muamalat actually. So our subject matter is operation of Islamic bank, which is a part of the financial system, for example, the commercial bank actually. So in this paper, we have examined the various types of Islamic bank retail financing product and services. So from the Islamic view on external financing, as you know, the financing can be categorized into two broad categories as well. One of them is equity financing. Another one will be debt financing. So come to equity financing. Now, I think there is, as you know, there is less issue in Islamic finance, such as Mudarabah or Musharakah. That is, for example, equity market. Then we come to the debt. Okay, it's interest based and lending. So that is there is no room for in Islamic and finance actually. Okay, so we have like the exchange of the contract, such as like BBA, Murabaha, Ijara, Bayat Salam, Istisna, and so on and so forth. So meaning that is we try to eliminate the interest based and the lending, but we convert into the exchange of the contract actually. So then what's the issue? The contract and the product and services in Islamic banking can be classified into the three broad and categories actually, such as sale-based and partnership-based and fee-based actually. So as you know, just now I mentioned, as far as the latter two is concerned, which is the partnership-based or the sale-based, there is less issue from Islamic and the perspective. But when we come to, just now Prof Iqbal is mentioned as well, if you look at the major component of Islamic bank is mostly the sale-based actually. So as far as the latter two is concerned, there is little objection from Islamic perspective. So the major issue is lying on the sale-based and the contract. So in the partnership, as you know, in the liability side or the asset side, as you know, we can do that. Mudarabah or Musharakah, they are partnership. But as you know, this one is least popular. In the fee-based, Islamic bank, they can impose some fees. They want the service or what we call is the offer. So these fees not based on the interest rate, not utilizing any interest rate is benchmark actually. So meaning that there is less issue from Islamic perspective on fee-based and partnership-based. So however, application of the above mentioned and partnership or fee-based and product is not popular ones. Put differently, these are not the major component of balance sheet of the Islamic bank actually. So the main component of Islamic bank, sale-based product such as housing financing, car financing, personal financing, as well as the credit card and facilities actually. So this and the base and the contract, they are applying BBA, Murabaha, Parallel Istisna, Tawarruk, Musharakah, Muntanakisa, Aitab, Ar-Rahnu, and so on and so forth. So therefore, the critical assessment is needed as far as Islamic banking and product services are the concerns. So what's wrong with the conventional and the loan actually? As you know, there is only one agreement, which is the loan agreement. I sell the money and the money actually. So the customer just approach to the developer, just pay the down payment and just commitment to the sell, then approach to the bank, then apply for the loan actually. As you know, the loan is based on the interest rate. So that's why we are saying that there is no room for the interest based and the financing. So that's why these are the main categories of the retail product and services of the Islamic Bank, especially in context of the Malaysia. Is housing financing, they are using BBA, deferred and the sale actually by the installment. As well as they're using some bank, they're using Musharakah Muntanakisa, partnership with declining ownership, home financing, as well as parallel istisna home financing. Later on, I will touch some issue on that. And also, they're using tawarruk and home financing actually. So meaning that is different bank they're using, different and contract for the home financing. So the car financing, I think there's only one contract, which is the ijara, thamal-based itab, Islamic hire purchase. Then the personal financing, as you know, the inner personal financing, that is most controversial among the Sharia scholars actually. Okay, and also tawarruk, personal and financing, and also rahan and personal and rahnu, personal financing. When it comes to the credit card, the Ujra credit card as well as the tawarruk and the credit card. Actually, they already eliminated INA base as well as what we call is wakala based credit card actually. So now the currently most popular one will be these two contract actually. One is the Ujra, another one will be tawarruk. So our approach in our people actually it's more than 45 pages. Okay, so to explain each product with appropriate Sharia, applicable Sharia contract and the modus operandi, as well as the pricing mechanism of each product. Because many of the textbook or the research only look at the contract or the modus operandi, but there is some less studies on the pricing actually. So that is as contribution, we included the pricing mechanism of each product, and also identify the issues and the challenges of each and the product. So in our people, we have examined more than 10 product and services offered by the Islamic Bank. However, here, because of the of course, I cannot finish all the 10 this presentation. So I choose only one product or the service from each category to examine their structures, pricing, issues, and challenges actually. Okay, so from the home financing, I pick up Musharakah Muntanakisa. I think after this, there will be another presentation on the Musharakah Muntanakisa. Also, actually, Prof. Zul, expert on this Musharakah Muntanakisa actually. Okay, so maybe we will discuss more on it later on. So here, this Musharakah Muntanakisa actually combination of 4 different contracts. One of them will be partnership, the second one will be ijara, third one it will be wa'ad, and the last one will be the al-bay. Okay, so I don't want to describe the purpose of each contract, but it's a combination of 4 different contracts actually. Okay, so in this modus operandi, let's say the customer and the bank, they come together. Let's say the customer contribute 10% and the bank is contribute another 90%, then they bought the house actually. Then the customer need to pay the rental plus with the, it has to buy back let me put me this way. Execution will be the customer identify the property and negotiate the pricing and the term of the sale with the vendor. So they sign the sale and purchase agreement, they pay 10% deposit and apply for financing. Then after that, a customer approach to bank to request property financing. Once this approved, they become Musharakah partners with the customer actually. Okay, so finally, bank and customer sign Musharakah Muntanakisa property financing facility agreement. So customer holding the property on trust for the Musharakah partnership under the deeds of the trust actually. Okay, so customer will pay the amount in addition to the rental to buy back bank shares in the property. So once all the payment is done, the agreement is done, so Musharakah and Ijara agreement will be terminated. Then customer will become the owner of the property. So what's issue is here? We look at this is the computation or the pricing of Musharakah Mundanakisa. Actually, as you know, we are in finance, they're using the amortization actually, just amortization concept. So based on amortization concept, I give example here. Okay, so this is, let's say, property price 500,000. The bank initial equity, let's say 450,000, and the customer, let's say 50,000. Okay, this is just example. Then just compute the monthly payment based on the amortization concept. Then after that, how they label, okay, the equity as well as the ijara component. The rental component, actually just using the rental rate, actually the rental rate based on the interest rate, okay, interest rate, they label as ijara component. So the rental component so will be 2,250. Then the equity component will be this much. You can see equity, the rental component is much larger than the equity and the component actually. Okay, so Dr. Zul, there are many papers on this, but it's different from this actually. This is the practical application in Islamic banks in Malaysia actually. So it's no differences between the amortization and the concept. So only the labeling part will be different. So what's issues in the housing financing? The first one will be transfer of ownership. The bank doesn't hold the proper ownership before selling the house actually. Okay, so Islamic bank practices in Malaysia doesn't enable to the bank to purchase the property. I think this is the same case for Turkey as well. So the correct way to do this is participating the ALBE, which meaning that bank need to purchase property from the developer, then sell to the customer. So meaning that they owe the proper and ownership. So the second one will be late payment. In the past, there is no penalty imposed on the late payment, but because of the moral hazard by the customer who attempt to pay late, so the Islamic bank will be at risk because of that late payment. So Bank Negara Malaysia approved 1% penalty over the outstanding principal balance. So this is the second issue. Third issue will be application of Bay al-Ina. In the BPA, I sell the property to the bank sell to me like immediately actually. So this is then will be the property purchase agreement. I sell and property, the sale agreement, I buy back from the bank. So this is the application of Bay al-Ina. And also early settlement or redemption facilities, BBA home financing offered by the Islamic bank, usually lock-in and period. The lock-in period you cannot take advantage from what we call is the early settlement and the benefit or IBRA actually. In issue in istisna, two contracts must be independent. Okay, sales of non-exist and non-ownership by the seller of the subject is forbidden by Hanafis. So meaning that is basically is we are especially the Turkey and the Central Asian countries usually we follow the Hanafi. So in Malaysia they sell even the house is not there yet based on the istisna. So the bank and the customer, they do one agreement, istisna agreement, and the bank, they do another agreement with the vendor actually. So meaning that I only deliver when the developer completed the house actually. So this is application of istisna. So this is forbidden according to Hanafis. And artificial buy and sale. Okay, artificial buy and sale, manipulated transaction in tawarruq, just like I buy from him and I sell to another one. It's just like manipulated and transaction. Intention is to get the liquidity, not to get the commodity. And the third one will be, it seems to be the process of buying and selling commodities always remain. There is absence of the true ownership from the seller to the buyer to increase the vulnerability of the Sharia restriction. 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. So I finished the housing financing. Now we come to the vehicle financing, which is the most applicable contract will be Ijara Simal Bay, which is Ijara ending with sale or rental ending with the sale for the housing financing. So here, I think this is the modus operandi. I think you can read from my papers, inshallah, later on. So this is the modus operandi. Then they come to the pricing. I think they're just running here, not using amortization concept, but here they're using Rule 78 to compute actually. Okay, for the pricing of the car financing. I think the issues in ITA is similar to the home financing. Because of the time constraint, I will not discuss this. Then the Rahan personal financing, because I choose one from each categories actually. But in my paper, I describe almost all. Okay, so Rahan is defining as the pledge or the collateral, whereby the valuable asset such as the gold is given to the pledge as a security against the interest-free loan or the financing actually. So I think this one will be again, let's say the borrower wants to get some money from the Islamic bank. So they have to pledge something as Rahan, then they will get, the amount is less than the value of the gold actually. Okay, again is because of the risk management. I think the explanation will be here. The customer approaches the Islamic bank with valuable item such as the gold, collateral also 5,000, they will give 4,000 and so on and so forth. So this will be execution part. Then the pricing part of the personal financing is depending on value of the collateral. If what will happen if less than 500 ringgit or 5 to 2,500 or more than 2,500, so they have different fees for the Arrahnu actually. So this is the pricing of Arahan personal financing. Then the issues in personal financing, like for Tawarruk and personal financing or Ina personal financing, it seems to be both facilities identical in terms of the purchase of getting immediate cash. Financing is a consideration of the delayed repayment plus some other profit actually. Okay, so both above contract, customer only intention to get the cash financing and doesn't really bother or to the commodity actually. And also the guaranteed profit to the bank, selling price is of the bank always higher than their purchase price. So some issues related to Rahan personal financing, issue of safekeeping charge or issue of the combination of Rahan and Wadia and the contract. So to sum up, above the examination, we can see that the Islamic Bank today seems to be more concerned about the sticking the word rather than the spirit of the Islamic finance. So we can summarize the issue and the challenges from several perspectives, such as form and substance, makas of the Sharia, and our focusing on the debt financing rather than equity financing, and also wealth distribution. From the form and substance, when the legal form is considered fully valid, but substance totally is different. Okay, so in context of Islamic finance, some product and services of the Islamic banking valid from legal perspective, but their practice is similar to the conventional banking system in terms of the pricing, interest-based benchmark, as well as treatment of the late payment, and etc. Makas of the Sharia, the starting point Islamic finance, that is profit maximization, should not only the objective of Islamic institution that offering the social values should be the part of the value proposition. The Islamic finance paradigm has always considered values such as social well-being, makas of the Sharia to be central to any decision making. And also our focusing on the debt financing rather than equity financing with debt-based mode of the finance predominantly in Islamic finance and price it with the same interest rate and benchmark. It seems to be the practice of Islamic banking is far from the ideals of Islamic economic and the principles. Again, this is the last one. Islamic Bank, our focus on the debt based and product and services. I already explained this part. So the heart of Islamic finance, risk sharing, not prevail in the practice of the Islamic Bank. If Islamic Bank too much rely on debt based and contract, the general public disenchanted with Islamic finance. Therefore, Islamic finance should away from our usage of debt financing, should move towards more equity-based product and services. So it should be emphasized also equity of efficiency of allocation of the resources and then distribution in income. For example, the zakat, Therefore, it's important that Islamic Bank not only try to maximize their own welfare and also takes care the different level of the society by means of proper wealth distribution tools. That will be end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Saiti. It's a very, comprehensive and well-elaborated study. Actually, it is also interesting for me because I'm currently involved in this Diminishing Musharakah project. But I use my right to comment first at the beginning, and I'll leave the floor with question. This is the picture in Malaysia, right? So I recommend that we should emphasize that this is the case of Malaysia, because there are differences. We see different applications in terms of, especially modus operandi. We have a very variety of products throughout across the Islamic countries. For instance, we don't have in Turkey specifically. We don't use BBA. We use another structure of Murabaha. So we may just a small addition. This is the case of Malaysia. So the Gulf has other applications, right? So I hope this will be a very good addition to the literature. Okay, the questions.
Yes.
Let's start with.
Yeah. Yes.
I want to talk about Musharakah.
Yeah.
Because another paper.
Yeah.
But I think we useful if you collect empirical data
Yeah.
and make a comparison of perception of customers insurance. For your next paper.
Inshallah. Thank you.
You know about the pricing, we are still using this amortization, right?
Yes.
Pricing.
Yes.
I mean, that itself, not only even essence is wrong, it's also in form is all wrong too.
Yeah.
Because this amortization, when you do this, you are calculating interest on interest,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, this
Can we use the microphone, guys?
This really bothers me. This industry is going, even Murabaha, we talk
Yes,
about form
exactly.
versus, I just lost my flow. The form versus substance. Even, they say that, okay, the form was okay, substance is wrong, but even form-wise is wrong. And it has been going on for such a long period of time, and nobody is questioning this.
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
The riba is already built in, the pricing
Yeah.
of this.
Just now I mentioned exactly this is the interest component. This is the price actually. So actually the pricing part exactly and the same with the conventional.
Yeah, conventional one. So I mean, we see we have a huge issue here, and nobody's taking on this thing really, and trying to correct this pricing.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is, the dependency on interest rates. So we have to change this manner. So we propose in the pricing, this rate.
No. Even if you take a benchmark, I think it's not a question of benchmark. It's the way the mechanism that you will use, to price it. The pricing formula itself is wrong. It cannot be applied to a Islamic banking product. That is my concern. I'm not really dealing with the benchmark issue.
Yeah, exactly.
That bank is a total. Whatever benchmark you use, you will have the same problem here.
Because I agree with Kabir. Because actually this is time value of money formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Islam we cannot preempt the pricing before actually vending the goods.
Yes.
This is a big issue here.
Yeah.
To discuss.
And we are not really using very simple. Let's say we have a 10% profit margin, okay? So product is, let's say 20%. The product is for 1 year. So price test says 1,000, 20% is 1,200. So if it is a simple, the way it should be done, so $100 per month and 12 months is done. But that's not the way to do it here.
Exactly.
When you use this compounding, this amortization, we do not use, and nobody's attacking and nobody's saying anything.
Exactly. That's why, Prof, just now I mentioned this will be my contribution because many researchers just to complain Tawarro is this issue, that issue. Actually, nobody look at the pricing part.
Yeah,
so I brought in the pricing part actually.
Do that, please.
So the Rule 78 much better than this actually. Why not applying the Rule 78 rather than the amortization? That will be for next people's inshallah.
Even Rule 78 has problem, but why don't you just go simple, you know? That's the way I said it. But nobody, if you do that, you will be highly uncompetitive, you know, compared to the conventional one.
Well,
you can.
this discussion takes us to the, very, essential point that we should not leave a place in compounding in Islamic finance at all.
At all. At all.
Prof. Sharia.
At all.
One more question like that.
Working is okay. So I think, Prof, the main issue here is that for a diminishing Musharakah product, right, you are actually not behaving as a partner. You are not behaving as a partner.
Yes, exactly.
Because every purchase must
Exactly.
be at the valuation at the time.
Exactly.
Okay? You're taking the either capital gain or capital loss risk.
Yeah.
So we are working on a product with some students in the UK, theoretical product at the moment, to have a proper equity sharing. And the bank, in the UK, for example, you can easily factor that you will have an average of 3% real gain
Yeah.
over the years, okay? Can you price the product 3% lower from day one?
Yeah.
You factor that in, and then you share the capital gain and loss. Now that will bring an equity sharing element into it and remove most of these issues. If you model it, you will see that both the borrower and the lender are better off
Exactly.
overall.
Exactly. I
okay?
think that is the.
That's where we
ideal
need to
scope.
go.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're just playing with words. And when you look at BBA for home financing,
It's same calculation.
this is dangerous because you cannot have a long-term contract on a murabaha basis. This is really, you have seen from your own legal cases that this can destroy you altogether.
Thank you, Prof.
But the diminishing musharakah, yes, can be done better, can be made equity sharing,
Inshallah.
and can take us more towards the objective.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe I think Dr. Zhu, he has the theoretical one. It's different. The calculation mechanism is
paper on
different.
this.
Already
I have a
presented
paper on this. If you're interested, I can give you.
tomorrow.
After this.
After this, inshallah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, shall we move to the other, the next presentation? Because we are running out of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for your presentation. We will be discussing further, on the presentations. Okay, now the next presentation, I think I invite Professor Kabir Hassan. You are Selim. We presenting the relationship between return and volatility in ETFs traded in Borsa Istanbul. Is there any difference between Islamic ETFs and others?
Selamünaleyküm. Today I will try to present our paper with Hassan and also Bayat. We examine the ETFs traded in Borsa Istanbul, and we'll take a look at the relation between returns and volatility in ETFs. And we will investigate if there is a difference between Islamic ETFs and others. There are different types of ETFs. These are Islamic Stock Index ETFs. These are Islamic Stock Index ETFs, conventional stock index ETFs, bond ETFs, commodity ETFs. These are silver and gold ETFs.
Excuse me, can we use the microphone, please?
Not working. Okay. Okay, I will stand up. And the last one is US dollar-based ETFs. We use. Okay. Why we check the relationship between return and volatility? Because it has a crucial role in hedging losses in financial markets. And if we understand the nature of volatility as an indicator of risk, we can build an early warning system to reduce the risk of loss. And the question is there any difference between Islamic and other ETF types in explanation of relation between return and volatility? If we can answer this question, we will be able to examine possible differences in the behavior of investors in investing in different ETFs. The problematic is that there is a consensus about the relation, about the type of relation, but the debate on how variables affect each other in different shock types is ongoing. And conventional hypotheses are leverage hypothesis and volatility feedback hypothesis. And the latest actual hypothesis is behavioral explanation hypothesis. And leverage hypothesis states that when the value of a firm falls, the value of its equity becomes a smaller percentage of the firm's total value. Since the equity of the firm bears the entire risk of the firm, the volatility of equity should subsequently increase. So, volatility feedback states that for firms with high systematic risk, market-wide shocks may significantly increase their conditional covariance with the market. The resulting higher required return leads to a volatility feedback effect on the conditional volatility, which will be absent or weaker for firms less sensitive to market level shocks. So, increases in volatility indicate that required future returns will increase and current stock prices will decline.
Just into the empirical side.
Okay. The critics about conventional hypotheses are about asymmetric behaviors of people and time frequency of responsiveness. And as a result of these critics, behavioral explanation hypothesis claims that behavior of investors are asymmetric and contemporaneous rather than lagged. So we will check the asymmetric relation and the lack of the response. So the ETFs we employed are listed on the table, and 4 Islamic, 4 stock index, 1 bond, 1 US dollar based, and 4 commodity. 2 of them is Islamic, 2 of them is conventional. Variables what we use, return of each ETF gap between 2 prices, and the other is volatility of each ETF, and we calculated equation 2. Okay, we employ 5 different methods. All of them are causality analysis, time series analysis. We employ a lot because all of each of these statistical power is different. Causality invariance, check the causality in variance. Others are check in mean. Asymmetric causality, we check the asymmetries in response of each variable. And frequency domain, we employ high frequency data to check if the response of each variable in different time frequency, short, medium, or long run. And so we will be able to find the results if there is an asymmetry or not, or in which lag they respond. Okay, results. I will summarize the results. For Todo Yamamoto and Bootstrap Todo Yamamoto causality analysis results, imply that the leverage hypothesis may be valid in all Islamic ETFs, 2 all commodity ETFs, 3 all the conventional stock ETFs, and US dollar-based ETFs. Results indicating causality running from returns to volatility in each ETF type also give some hints about the validity of the behavioral explanation hypothesis. Toda-Yamamoto and Bootstrap Toda-Yamamoto causality analysis and results claim that unidirectional causality running from volatility to returns is found in a small number of ETFs. It is valid in 2 of the Islamic stock ETFs, 2 of the commodity ETFs, and 2 of the conventional stock ETFs. On the other hand, there is no causality running from volatility to returns in US dollar-based and bond-based ETFs. Results indicate that volatility feedback hypothesis doesn't exist in all ETFs. Frequency domain causality analysis reports that causality between variables may occur in both long and short run. That means the leverage and volatility hypothesis in the longer periods and behavioral explanation hypothesis in the shorter periods are valid for most of the ETFs. Causality invariance test results show that the volatility feedback hypothesis is valid for 2 Islamic ETFs, while the leverage hypothesis is not valid for any kind of ETFs. Despite 2 empirical methods supporting each other for 2 Islamic ETFs, results differ for other ETF types. Asymmetric causality analysis supports the leverage and behavioral explanation hypothesis, implying an asymmetric relation between return and volatility. But contrary to implication of Badstadt 2013, the power of negative shocks in returns is not supported by the test results. A positive shock in volatility will induce a negative change in returns for this type of ETFs. These results support the volatility feedback hypothesis. As a conclusion, results differ with the type of ETF examined. It is clear that a negative relation between return and volatility is valid for all types of ETFs, except bond ETFs, bond-based ETFs. However, the validity of asymmetric causality explained by law and Hibbert is somewhat complicated. Although we find some evidence implying that the behavioral explanation hypothesis may be valid for US dollar-based ETFs and some conventional stock ETFs, other evidence doesn't fit very well into this hypothesis, implying that negative return shocks are more impactful than positive ones on volatility. The disparity between the existing literature about the behavioral explanation hypothesis and our findings may arise from the disparity in the financial tools examined. The Degler 2004 claims that the asymmetric relation is weaker in ETFs compared to stock ETFs, stock index. Moreover, we employ different ETF types. Consequently, the relation between return and volatility for ETFs may be hypothesized separately from stock index. When we compare the Islamic stock ETFs to conventional stock ETFs, it is possible to see that the causality between returns and volatility is stronger in conventional stock ETFs than in Islamic stock ETFs. This means that conventional hypotheses are better suited to explain conventional ETFs than Islamic ones. These findings give some indication that the behavior of Islamic ETF buyers is different from others. So, thank you.
Okay. Let's move to the comments and questions. Are there any questions or comments? There is no. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And let's move to the last presentation by Hakan Aslan. He will be also talking about this diminishing musharakah, using diminishing musharakah method for house financing demographic analysis for Turkey. It's a kind of simulation, right?
Yes.
And let's see what happens.
Colleagues, can we use microphones, please? We want to see the discussion.
Bismillah. I'm Hakan Aslan from Sakai University. I'm working as a research assistant in the Department of Islamic Economics and Finance. Today I'm going to talk about the diminishing musharakah method using in Turkey. Actually, this is an initial work for Turkey. This is not kind of a working in progress. More to the things that I say, I actually expect from you to comments and contributions so I can develop this work in a better way. I actually used the diminishing musharakah method from the earlier papers. I take that method, so how can be implemented in Turkey? So my presentation will be like presentation plan will be like this. Then first I will generally talk about the murabaha and diminishing musharakah house financing methods. This is I don't want to talk too much about this. I will skip very fast. Murabaha house financing method in Turkey. I need to indicate that I based this study especially for Turkey. We use a kind of vaat. In Turkey, the customer first find the house and make the vaat that I'm gonna buy the house. Then goes to the participation bank and says I'm going to buy this house. And participation banks says the profit rate, how much he will use for the buying house for murabaha method. And then customer, the house owner, sell the house to the bank. In this case, bank use the buyer of the house wakil of the bank. So they use the owner, the buyer as a wakil. So buyer goes to for the buying period and buy the house on his name, and then the payment goes on. This is how we do house financing in Turkey. And this is the musharakah mutanaksa or diminishing musharakah, diminishing partnership house financing method. First, customer and banks buy the house together. In Turkey, we have the customer needs to pay at least 25% of the house. This is in our law. So I try to implement this paper like to be made more realistic in Turkey. I use the real numbers that we have to use in our system. So 25% customer will pay, and 75% will be bank's share. They will buy the house together, and after that, each month there will be rental payment. Rental payment will be paid for the house owner if he wants to live in the house. Most of the case, actually 100%, the owner living in that house. So when they make the rental payment, each rental payment, the share of the bank will decrease. Each month it will decrease. If the rental payment is not enough, for example, there's an aim, he wants to finish the payment in 10 years, he may need to pay extra by time. This is how the Musharakah Mutanazika method used in the world generally. So what did I do? I want to make short. So what did I do? I use how can we implement in Turkey to be more realistic. Normally the early works generally estimated the rental payment is fixed. Also there are other works makes the rental payment raised by in several years. But in Turkey we raise the rental payments in every year. What do we use? We use normally domestic PPI for raising the rental payment according to law. But it is the written law, but is it really we apply in this way? This is the question. And also, so I will show how I did the situation. First, before that I used the diminishing Musharakah. First, I'll use the Murabaha house financing cost. So I checked all our 4 participation banks when I making this calculations. It was around 15%. It was like 14 to 16% per year annual profit rate for the banks. I used for 50% for participation banks. If they use 15% profit rate per year, so this is the for I estimated a house is 200,000 Turkish lira. So 50,000 needs to be paid by the customer. This is according to law. You have to pay 25%. So 150,000 needs to be financed by the bank. So if 150,000 is financed by the bank in conventional Muraba, actually in terms of calculations it's the same. So the cost of the house will be 2,900. If we make the profit rate 1% per month or 12% per year, so the price will be 258,000 and something. And I make even lesser. Recently we try to use more for house financing. They decrease the profit rates according to recent change. Even for this, for 150,000 financing, we need to pay 237,000. The customer needs to pay. So in Turkey we use CPI or domestic PPI for the rental rate according to law. But in real, actually we use more than that. But also there are other cases. Some house owner says I will not raise the house rental for this month. It depends on the agreement between house owner and the rental. So normally we use domestic PPI. It was like 7.43%. So I used like 7.45. Actually, I didn't. Try to make the rental payments more realistic. I'll show from the Excel worksheet. Actually, better to explain. So I estimated 1,000 will be the first rental payment. For each month we will raise like 7.45, but I didn't use exact 7.45. I make each year the raise of the rental payment, like make realistic. I didn't use the odds of the number. Then this is the cost of the house if you use the diminishing Musharakah. There is a problem here for the banks. When the profit rate for the banks, when we compare here, for example, here for 15% profit rate, the total profit for the bank is 140,000. But when we use diminishing Musharakah, it decreases. If we just raise the rent, according to domestic PPI, I use the historical data, so it's 70%. It's almost half of the profit. If we estimate maybe rental will be 10% or even 15%, even this number will not reach today's conventional or Murabaha method. This is the problem for the banks. Maybe if we propose diminishing Musharakah model for the participation banks, maybe they will refuse it in terms of rental payment. But there's one point I want to indicate that if the rental payment is higher, so this is the free market, the rental payments can be higher, they can raise higher like around 50%. If it is 15%, it can catch the number, it can catch the number like today's decreased profit rate. Decreased profit rate today we use like around 10% per year. So it can catch the number today's conventional Murabaha applications if the rental raise rate is high. So what kind of issues will we have if we try to implement this method in Turkey? So cost of the house will be, first thing, the house price is 200,000 at the beginning, but in 10 years the house price will raise. So how can we implement? Should we implement this to the house price, or should we keep it the same? Which one will be fair, or which one will be good in terms of Sharia? I try to raise the house price according to our house price index. When I imply this, the numbers is much higher than that. It's even double or triple the price. Another point is I use the domestic PPI, just kind of simulation how it can be if we try to implement it. So what should we really use if we use this method in Turkey? What should be the real number? Is it domestic PPI, or should we make another index? This is another issue that we need to answer before we start the implementation. There's also, in case of default, what if we have there's a default and the buyer cannot make the payment? So there will be high liquidity problem for the banks. They will have they own the house, they have a lot of house, but they will not have money in their banks. So this is actually the big problem for the banks. Another issue for Turkey, we don't have any regulation, of course, because we don't have implementation yet. So first we need to, before implemented, if we solve these issues, or at least try to find a way for Turkey, so we can decide what kind of regulation we need to follow. So there are also another benefits for this method. For example, there's one issue when we use the Murabaha method. If the buyer of the house cannot make the payment on time, what should we do? We cannot charge interest, but the method they use in Turkey, it's like you need to make not the interest, but kind of punishment fee, or because of delaying your payment. So this is all problematic to using Murabaha method. But when we use diminishing Musharakah, if you delay your payment, you're still getting the rental payment from your share. Bank will get his share. If they delay, you will get your profit. You still have to make the payment till you go. So this is kind of good for the banks. When we think about the essence of the Islamic finance, it's more, in my opinion, it's more feels like Islamic finance in terms of like sharing together, and this kind of will help the people's mind, because every time it's criticized this Murabaha financing, always they're doing Murabaha, it's very similar to conventional. So when we implement this will kind of clarify the situation, the question marks in the people's mind, the differences between Islamic finance and conventional finance, and it will raise the awareness on this topic. So as a conclusion, I try to compare the in terms of like Islamic essence, like in terms of simulation method. So diminishing Musharakah method, it's better in terms of Sharia and Islamic essence, but there are some issues needs to be solved. But in my opinion, we should focus on these issues and challenges. And actually, my question to our audience that may help me to to discuss these issues, so I can find out and go on this way. So before we do this, we need to make the regulation. And another point I want to indicate, we have cooperative house financing methods in Turkey. We call kind of evim, like emin house financing. They use cooperative method. They are buying house cooperative. They are collecting the money and they are buying the house each month for themselves. So maybe we can structure this method, diminishing musharakah, for this cooperative structure financing methods. So it will be, in my opinion, it will be more fit in to this method. So this is end of my presentation. Thank you. I expect your contributions.
Can you go back to your numbers? Okay, so can you go back to the previous?
This one?
BB.
Or this one?
So this is the diminishing musharakah?
No, this is the murabahah.
Murabahah.
Yes.
The next one. So this is diminishing musharakah.
Yes.
But again, you're using what pricing mechanism you're using here?
What's the formula behind the numbers?
Yes, rental divided by the price of the house.
Rental
You divide the
the
rental and you
Divide
rent.
by job, divide by job.
Okay.
Exactly.
Multiply by 12, divide by
Again,
cost.
amortization.
Again, the amortization problem, right, okay. You have got to, we have to think about it. This pricing is a big issue, really. Nobody is questioning this.
Yes.
And this is a huge, and this is the riba is already built in.
Yeah.
And we're trying to remove the riba. It's not happening. I know it will be, actually, well, I have a reason why it is not, and Mohammed works in this area a lot. You know, this mindset, you know, we are doing name Islamic banking, yes, it is selling, but when you come deep down in, aside from other issues, even the pricing mechanism, we cannot get it right. And how can you move it forward? And part of the reason is that entire problem that is arising, I know there are two schools of thought here. This fractional reserve banking model itself is unsuitable for Islamic banking. Whether it's talking about short-term banking that you know, and of course it's not applicable to partnership type of financing. So we really, when you talk about in Turkey, I know starting the journey new, it's young in terms of compared to other developed or emerging countries which are taking on Islamic finance. But I think you should do it right from day one. You know that this fractional reserve cannot work. But having said this, we are going to talking about a radical revolution here within the financial system, and whether the regulators will understand that, and even if they understand, whether they accept it, because you are really creating a sort of huge noise within the system.
But the baseline issue is the fractional reserve banking. This
That's
manner,
bottom
this
line.
concept.
And this minor fractional reserve is not for Islamic banking that is criticism. Even the people who started this, the Western scholars, talking against it. But they are not being able to do anything against it. They know the issue. Milton Friedman has said, create, separate this and do the banking, the narrow banking transaction plus investment, to solve the problem. Now, it is a problem within the conventional space, and we are using that problem in Islamic, so it's a double problem for us.
By the way, for your information, there is a regulation proposal for this Musharakah Mutanakisa.
There's a regulation proposal for this Musharakah Mutanakisa in Turkey. Now it is the desk of BDDK, the Banking Regulation Supervision Agency. So there is a legal framework already studied, but let's see what happens.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'd like to clarify one point for myself. You had mentioned that from the very first day when the customer appoints as a backup from the bank side that goes to the homeowner, then he buys the house on his name, you said?
Yes,
On its name or on his name?
his name.
Because 75% of the price is covered by...
No, this one I was talking about Murabaha method in Turkey. I said how we do in Turkey now.
I'm asking regarding...
Yeah, this is actually in practical issue we don't have in Turkey yet. So this is the issue that we don't have any regulation on this. Like,
so what's your proposal? What's your model? How you will run?
It's actually if we use for the banks. So bank will have a
assume bank as a financier, of course.
Yeah.
If you would have money, why would you turn yourself to the bank? Of course, you would go and pay out from your pocket.
So I propose maybe they can be like, we can define this method, like when you pay the rental payment, well, not maybe like monthly, it can be difficult in my opinion. We can make like arrangement in the proposal, like each year when you pay that amount of the house, the transferable will go. So if we can define, I don't know about the law part, the regulation part, but if they can, in my opinion, if they can fit in this framework, like every year you pay this amount, you promise amount, so some share of the house will transfer the customer.
Yeah,
in the paper, the house will be owned by the bank and the customer together. But I'm not sure whether we can implement in the law. How is this structure?
In any case, you make securitization in this case because, as you mentioned, every month, portion will move from the bank.
Yeah. Exactly.
And in the case of, like you said, in the case of bankruptcy of the customer, he might sell the securities on the second market. So in this case, this is my proposal. This is my
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, in this regulation, the proposal, the bank and the customer.
In the proposal, it says that the bank, the title is not shared. There is a special purpose vehicle or special purpose company, like the sukuk structure. That special company owns the whole title, but the customer and the bank are the partners of this company. So there is no direct partnership on the asset, but there's a vehicle, there's a intermediary company.
There is a story behind it.
So I think here we can take one more question and.
So there are two issues here, Hassan. Once you have the law, will you transfer the shares to the buyer, ultimate buyer? What price do you use to transfer? Because the price is varying.
This is the I actually asked the question. The price of the house.
Yeah.
How can we implement? Should we
because gradually it is
use
increasing.
the original price? Normally, the price will be increasing. To be fair, we need to. It needs to be implemented. But if we implement, it will be much higher than today's conventional price.
No, then you give a discount upfront because the bank is expecting a better return. Okay?
Yes.
That's one. The second question is, if you introduce these SPV structures and all these complications, then the transaction cost for the Islamic buyer will be much higher than the normal buyer.
I see.
So you will put the whole thing at a disadvantage.
Yes, you're right. Thank you.
Okay.
There is a concept called house appreciation amortization technique they use in the United States. So you can bring that. Shoot me an email. I'll send you a relevant paper. But again, it has the same built-in compounding interest. It solves one problem. It brings the issue of professor over there that the appreciation of the house should be built in to be more correct. But it still leaves the problem pricing because you will have this, the interest and built in within the system. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now let's move to this. Now I invite Professor Mehmet Asutay and Yılmaz to receive their certificates. Professor Asutay. Okay, Thank you for the presentation.